Piracy down, 1 million around 345. Recent data shows that the piracy has decreased over the last several years. Incidents fell to the lowest level 30 years of 2004. Recent spikes in piracy will stay limited, dropping to 4. Though sustained piracy would put pressure on the global shipping industry, piracy's impact will be limited due to stronger multinational counter-piracy structures. Piracy activity could persist with Venezuela likely to reach its scale of 2010, Somaliland is the second part of the strategy, due 11 fines. Since 2008, Somaliland has been stable during new counter-piracy operations. Somaliland is geographically situated essential locating farm march 24 fines. Somalia's coastline along the coast in the Indian Ocean is stable to Africa. Piracy only access some leads support them. World Bank Group 13. To get to the root cause of the problem, go after the system, not just pirates. Pirates, they replace it rather than political stability to do business in. They bribe politicians and gain long-term access to coast. Piracy would be less profitable if Somalia removes access to safe acreage points. The negative world in which Somaliland is not recognized movements by leads do not accompany pirates as built in 1818 times. Somaliland had local links strong enough to provide coverage of piracy, but Somaliland had a narrative of others from the rest of Somalia that had local links were unified in their tolerance of piracy. Refusing piracy is viewed by elites and Vicky Dunlop state quotas. Phillips and Hastings 1805. The lack of piracy in Somaliland is attributable to its case for recognition of sovereignty. Somalilanders unified to avoid repeating violence in Somalia's past, which differentiates Somalilanders from Somalis. The act removes the incentive to counter piracy of Apollo 25. Recognition would take away the very incentives that put them apart from Somalia. Full sovereignty would incentivize elite local pursuit with free politicians having to think about people as the ultimate drivers of their overall economic well-being. The first impact is trade, ODP 11, piracy skyrocketed costs. More than 12% of the volume of oil transport by uses route diversions were bringing about a series of negative repercussions. The second impact is militarization, reverse October 22 fines. Military actors no longer focus on containing maritime threats. Operations are driven by geopolitical rivalries and ambitions. Importing geopolitical rivalries could increase tensions and undermine maritime cooperation. This works with militarization as ODP 11 finds that the anti-piracy activities in the Gulf of Aden serve as a cover-up for the live testing of sub-lethal weapons, contrary to the wishes of the Indian Ocean. Countries that have all along desire to keep these waters free from nuclear destruction. It's causing nuclear war as FBI 19 times the current of the nuclear arms race, especially considering close proximity with and central Montgomery could be demoralizing Small nuclear war is Somaliland and Djibouti over the relations Gowrie, Iran, Mike 24. Euro America from the President who laid in such Djibouti's willingness to manufacture global opportunities to use more time. As he would be aspects of global right knee. But would be a sense of assumed power in a post-war world as Radio Dashi 24 finds that an agreement has been reached and Hassan Mubey will take power after Goulet. And international actors have taken recognize Somaliland on November 24. The issue of Somaliland recognition and fundamental law prevents international actors from approaching the matter. Both believe there is a strong link between Somalia's state building and territorial integrity. Implies Somaliland should be addressed from a regional perspective. Lack of recognition of trade. November 24 finds that Somaliland's lack of international recognition have hindered a dramatic increase in human trade. Recognition of Somaliland undermines internal stability economically and politically. As only 24 by the MOU as a ripple effect. Djibouti transit plummet. Port revenues are primary source of income. A decrease in earnings would affect the loyalties built up by Goulet and Plain. Power struggles over secession. The announcement that the MOU has already had a political impact. Goulet faced a severe blow to political credibility when the MOU was signed as no beliefs after he promoted a meeting between Somali presidents and Somaliland. This failure has shown how Goulet's ability to use politics is fading. There are two impacts of persons attacking Somaliland as West Environment 24 times. Djibouti may resort to supporting dissidents while militias on its borders to undermine the functioning of the port if the memorandum proceeds as planned. The impact is complicated with those 7 fines on the Africa small wars means they escalate into big war. This to no control shipping potentially give rise to global conflagration between competing powers, Djibouti, Somalia. Secondly, destabilizing the state only moving forward within the president's inner circle. Two mechanisms of version, second faction consists of Somali ISA. They view the MOU with suspicion. The first block has strong ties with Somaliland, and they view that the rivalry within power circle will overlap with regional ones. Regional actors looking for reports back the MOU and escalation tensions between Mogadishu and Hargeisa can profoundly impact the power struggles between the Djibouti regime. Your powers will pick sides, only 22. The African feuds within the PRP regime could be exacerbated depending on states such as China. Foreign states that are basing in Djibouti may support different sides, raising tensions and stakes. And great powers when using nuclear weapons. Person 1 finds that great power complicates the risk factor connected to other risks, causing breakdown in cooperation. Weapons with the potential to kill everyone could be used. Thus, we proudly negate the resolution.
U.S. born also?
Dr. Aurora, I thought
Advantage 1 stability. Regionally, fishing conflict is coming. Black 24. Rising ocean temp causing fish to migrate. Idly fishing compound risk. Horn of Africa at highest risk. Local law enforcement failures and institutional instability. The AFSOL, short 21. Without clear legal status, Somaliland deprived of co-op access to international markets. Greater stability, clarity would achieve Somaliland. Assist Somalia with security negotiations to resolve Somaliland best would address festering jurisdictional and security issues. The AU can compel Somalia to negotiate, which drives conflict. Fixing 19 confusion encourages to circumvent legal challenge, creating jurisdictional conflicts. Fishery build economic security, reduce likelihood tensions and provides consensus is key to UN support. IDAN 24. Without AU support, path to the UN is hard. Regional consensus voices loud. Supports fisheries. Moment 19. Diplomatic approach to fuse maritime conflicts, strengthening Somaliland membership of sustainable practices to solve conflict capable of UN force protections, terror, government, require multi-level expertise, stabilize regions, only war that can bring consensus. And previously 13. We want to see active in conflicts over self-determination, supervise ceasefire, levy sanctions, increasing cost of conflict over rights and resources trigger war with 18. Fishing rights turn to major armed conflict, maintain the local support. Leaders must ensure access to high-quality food. Fisheries collapse leaders to enormous pressure to secure regions. Internally, Somalia is collapsing. RC 24. Rising intertechnical conflict, fuel stability. 2025 estimated conflict destabilized. AFSOLs, Measure 21. Formalizing independence, focus mobilization release on governing power struggles. Plunge country into crisis, states seeking autonomy, jolt mobilization release through absorption with quality. Somali nationalism cease to unite. Independent Somaliland undermined by making realization unlikely. And nationalism divides Somaliland. Kajwana 24. Somali nationalism fuel tension, shattering stability, growing appeal of unification among minority classes in Somaliland. Luckily, South 321. Recognition, leaders gain legitimacy among domestic by claiming support of international players. Otherwise, catastrophe, lazy 23. Escalating fighting, danger to stability, cross war, risk of full war, goes nuclear, Finnick in 20. One of Africa leaders ended arms, treaties, prolife, and low barriers to new war, bonds, sucking the whole region and conflict 20 pandemic, accelerating risk, international form of ending wars, escalating out, attract outside of long treaties, expiring, dogs breaking down of the chance of living high, Foxy Wars extinction, Solomon 22, Delhi forces carried by winter forces, the building before, would end action like earth, advantage to Djibouti, falling to one and Solomon, that's already one. Beijing and Djibouti, was recognizing, will let the US build a partnership, catching its deterioration, Somaliland alone, divide Beijing, established Taiwan relationship, recognizing and knowledge, truth, allow effective reality, these policy, US place only based in Africa, Djibouti, China, Djibouti's largest trading, target shutdown, US activity, chill, maritime trading, new world, only forces of offering the ability to help, KPR, I cannot currently do because of constraints and Muslim communication recognition, since it goes territories distinct from Somalia, encouraging investment and trading, best that, method 24, Somaliland, ready to host basic US acknowledges its perceptual low grind, 24, recognizing Somaliland, STEM, CCP, show and Alta, trying to keep the competition, AU recognition is key, capital 9, US, open for the first move, negotiations by international bodies, result in long-term war, protect new states from invasion, Trump, ready for relations are key, 124, partnership allow watchful, I believe, military conjunction, fleshly, operating against security threats in the Red Sea, Trump formally supported one Somalia, willing to reverse from January, challenges ahead, withdrawing from institutions, foreign relations, other aggression, 21, potential downsides to recognition, Chinese hostility, Somalia, I force achieve and beyond downsides, the active international community, a lot of joint US, specifically India, Bashar, 21, any develop relations with Somalia, counter Chinese influence, and avoid or work out Djibouti, East Africa, Nigeria can death track and could acquire Nigeria to Syria. Otherwise, Chinese influence is going into really 24. China military exercises by significant expansion of power projection, previous drills from basing Djibouti, militarization, Djibouti, basic costs to the sky at 22. Djibouti's ties to China and Russia became unsuitable, only permanent countries in the US Somaliland and all years of accommodation China's base for things like U.S. planes, anti-cloud causes covert operations France way. No goes Washington desperately seek covert operations for Georgia and Africa, aligning Beijing success in global goes nuclear bears 21. False warnings, escalation dominance, and powers of nuclear exchange. Trump makes it likely June 24. Trump's approach to radicalize these maneuvers around China, freedom to lash out. As India power for false war, Panic 21. India will have to deploy hard power to clear China use India as inward looking. Otherwise, time 24, 2025, 2030, opportunity for China reporting 8,000 nuclear war. A lot of conflicts must be outside reach of hostile powers. Modernization completed by 2027. Less control of water from India. Independently, Chinese influence, pure stability, heresy team. Africa seems to bring the Chinese debt secure massive loans to stabilize Africa's spiral of credit downgrades, reduce spending on services, brutal political disillusionment, violent extremism. Yeah, you can start off.
I'll put the timer now. Can you list out every piece of offense that you read in constructive?
Well, what do you mean by offensive?
Like an offensive link, an argument that you can cross behind later speeches. Can you isolate all those?
There's the argument about issues. Specifically, there's the jurisdiction. There's the jurisdiction like there's development and like the stuff.
Sorry, to clarify, what's the US?
It's a UN recognition that UN has some argument. The second argument on the there's the scenario about. Oh wait, there's another argument on that argument. There's the Somalia instability and the Somalia instability argument over to the AFSOLs. On Djibouti, there's just the stop China Djibouti argument, which is like US that goes into the region, which is good for countering China and moving out Djibouti. And then there's the argument about India, which is like India goes in this competition. I'll do a question. On your Djibouti argument, can you explain this argument and every single the linking in 1, 2, 3 links?
Yeah, for sure. So currently in Djibouti, you would say that like it's stable, there's a secession plan lined up, however there's a because firstly it undermines Djibouti's ports. Most of the revenue that the government relies on and political relationship with factions within the regime is based off that port revenue. Therefore, undermining it in the affirmative world is recognized as smaller than be detrimental because they would fund proxies and would also decrease their internal stability. Secondly, Goulet has staked his campaign legacy on being a peace broker and especially with Somaliland and Somalia and unity. Therefore, the affirmative would undermine that and shake the regime further.
How does the affirmative?
Yeah, the affirmative undermines that because once the recognition of Somaliland happened, it seems like Goulet is completely off the right track when it comes to diplomacy, considering he believes that unity is the only way to go about things. He believes that it's the best way to go about things. When the MOU happened, we already saw the regime get really destabilized.
Explain why affirmative peace program can't happen.
It's not about that. It's about the perception within his regime that he's losing his diplomatic standing and that he's no longer a good leader. But I'll take a question.
Well, wait,
Great.
why?
So
Why is he losing diplomatic
we've been on this for a while. I'll have a third question. So let's talk about your UN argument. Are you only going for the UN that's able to enforce maritime law, or are you going for the UN to solve other threats in the affirmative?
Like, we're not going for any argument.
So how does the affirmative mean that the UN can enforce other things like climate or pandemic?
It's a lot of expertise.
So like the only reason for that is it bolsters Somaliland's response to those threats. It doesn't bolster the UN's response to those threats.
No, it is bolsters.
Okay.
And it's also, there's a link on this too, which ties into that, which that allows effective dialogue with this policy.
Okay. For the UN?
Yeah, that's fine.
Wait, the thing you mentioned, the link on C2 about which card is that?
The first card on Djibouti. Well, it's just the effective dialogue policy. It's not the UN.
Okay. So there's a little bit of that learning.
These are like just
Everyone good? Great. Start on our first argument about fishing. First, there's no good resource for it. That's the only team finds that there's little scholar inherent in negotiating reductions leading to conflict. People on the brink of starvation are not in the position to resort to violence towards countries that are considerably more complex than the global south, and their evidence to the South China Sea independently causes which they are able to resolve. Second, Somalia will never negotiate with the AU. The Autonomous 22 finds that Ethiopia has Kibashi's strong AU response to its civil war. The AU has little by way of sticks or carrots, meaning that our evidence is more recent than their Schwartz evidence and vines. There's absolutely no reason Somalia would negotiate. Third, Somalia hates the affirmative, meaning that they would never negotiate. 2018 finds the leaders in Mogadishu believe if Somalia were to officially become a nation, it would further divisions within an already turbulent country. Somalia wouldn't want to let go owing to the strategic patch of land near the Red Sea. This also answers their argument on Somalian instability because it proves that the state would lose legitimacy because they lose territory. Fourth, the affirmative can't resolve legal ambiguity. Their laser evidence says that other states in Somalia don't listen to licensing and the public opposes it because they think it causes domestic industry crowd out, which means that fishing happens in either world. If Somaliland is already collaborating on counter-piracy globally, our evidence is recent. From Article 24 finds the Somalia Coast Guard commenced a refresh training program to use IRS to coordinate with organizations beyond Somaliland access critical information. 6. China will block UN recognition. Hardly 20. Policymakers were unhappy with the new Taiwan movement expanding diplomacy. China has invested in trade in Africa. Soft power could isolate Somaliland, have a negative impact on how Somaliland engage with the AU. China is one of the 5 foreign members to the UNSC would block any future recognition. But 7. UN intervention is bad and disrupts local dynamics and state building process. Milliliter 16. By entering the political space where rivals negotiated and properly controlled the capital city and the position force became an instrument of division as well as leverage for political and military advantage. 8. They've read evidence that no evidence that the UN will get stronger, that the UN can solve other threats, and they agree that they're like on this connection to the US, not the UN. But on the state argument, first, probably by our stat and evidence, their evidence is only hypothetical, but Somalia thinks the affirmative is an existential threat that will always escalate. They have absolutely no warrant for why nationalism would go down. Second, their evidence to say Somalia is collapsing just that it could be destabilized. Third, we would say that the elites just fundamentally don't know how to govern because they're used to just doing things like accepting bribes and not actually helping the people, meaning there's no way that they would be able to improve this. But four, their survey evidence also says that things like climate and the interclan conflict are all independently trigger state collapse. Fifth, dialogue resolves the tensions in Somaliland right now. Iran Online from December 29 finds that efforts to resolve the protracted conflict between Somaliland and SSC Kachino took a step forward as leaders from SSC met with the peace delegation. Euro expressed commitment, which means that right now there are no internal conflicts in Somaliland. But six, comes by our Apollo evidence from piracy, which says that right now the elites, because they rely on tax-based revenue because they can't get foreign direct investment, are helping the people. But the affirmative changes that, which only escalates clan dynamics and causes perceptions of inequality, which means that the negative is much better. But on Djibouti, on the link of U.S. decline, first, China's influence is declining. Rate 24 finds that Chinese companies and government loans are no longer the support sources of choice for many countries in Africa, which you prefer because their evidence only looks at one drill, and this answers their argument that China's economic dominance turns case. Second, increased U.S. presence pushes African countries towards China. Pingman noted 24, political instability poses challenges that may compel it to deploy military and security forces to protect investments in economic development in order to maintain its control and resources, will China be willing to instigate coups, fund rebel groups, or deploy. Third, the affirmative alienates allies. Simmer 24 finds recognizing Somaliland could provoke significant backlash from U.S. allies. Egypt closely aligned with Somalia due to a shared concerns over Ethiopia's Red Renaissance Dam may view Somaliland recognition as a betrayal. Turkey has invested heavily in Somalia, which we would say you prefer on scope. That means that many more allies leave the United States, and that causes the justification for the U.S. to expand basing infinitely more. But four, there's no reason why their arguments are perceptual. We would say that the minute the affirmative happens, there's more instability on India. First, border disputes are down. March 24 finds that India and China have reached a deal to end the military standoff with their disputed frontier. Presumption of results along the border. Top the card there. But second, India power triggers Pakistan escalation. But non-22 finds that being the smaller power, Pakistan perceives the Indian threat as one that requires balancing by development of its conventional and nuclear capabilities, which means that Pakistan is much more likely to escalate. We would say that those two are the most likely scenario because Pakistan and India have relatively young nuclear arsenals that are less safeguarded and less state stability. On the miscalculation argument, first, escalation is empirically denied. There are examples that in 2018 there was a miscalculation where there was misperception between countries, but it didn't escalate. Second, the reason this happens is there are evidence that's confrontation with China, which means that we would say putting more bases in is bad and provides more richer miscalculation for their own logic. I just got one slide, don't worry about it.
This way.
Wait, can you just let me know what part it is also?
I mean, I marked it during speech, but it was a Marcy evidence.
No, say that.
Marcy?
Just let me know where it is, like, so I know where to look for.
Marcy, like the India uniqueness. If you float it, it's just where I said one card.
Oh, sorry. Alright, cool. I see the mark. Everyone's ready. Fine. Orders to be distributed frontline and down
The same comment, yeah.
Did you send it on?
I'm doing that right now.
Oh, okay, no worries. I just want to know when
They
I
had
have
it
to
in
do it.
Pakistan.
Yeah.
Outside, did you expect it? Was it the first people to say that?
I turned the audio.
It's done. Second or by I do second. This is done.
Oh, we took 30.
Thank you for the commentary.
Okay. Is everyone ready? Okay. Alright. Time starts. Honestly, one will concede no war and no UN recognition consists of the terms on stability. Other arguments, they say absolutely independence and no diplomacy, no impact is, and the German takes it out for it. It's not Somaliland needed score bias. They say Somaliland thinks the action is actually a threat. No, Somaliland has been independent for 30 years, and they just gave up even if it's extended because a third of countries are now on Somaliland's side. They say the evidence is destabilizing, that's sufficient. They say Missouri talks about interclan conflict we solve by giving legitimacy. Dialogue fails, even if Ira wants dialogue, the other can't don't, and the justification of the collapse argument of the Apollo crossing argument, we get responses when they explain it. Then go to RC2. They say China's down now, but read their evidence. It is so bad. A, we say that China loads are increasing, which they consider that. B, we're talking about military drills and hard power, which their evidence doesn't talk about. They just say that, oh, US is like the only thing in Somalia. But no, they say like it pushes other countries away from like the US, but our argument isn't whose country goes to who. It's just the idea that the US needs to have a place in the country or region as a whole to project its power onto, or else it reverses things like covert operations or attempting more destabilizing. And even then, they consider that Somaliland is key, so even if it takes out other regions, it's enough. They say that alienates other allies, but hey, they consider that other countries like Egypt and Somalia won't give up their biggest and strongest ally just for something like Somaliland, which we've already proved it isn't existential, but even more, we'll just say that again, the US only needs Somaliland, these other regions aren't that important. Then, go to India specifically, they say the invasion agreement, that solves one dispute, but when China gets more power after the development, they can do invasion. It's not a territorial conflict, it's about energy, which is needed. They say argument is about India developing weapons, but rather, it's not about developing weapons, but rather power projection halfway across the globe. They say Mid-Cap had to de-escalate, that changes in 2 years when China militarizes to become more powerful and confident. They say competition is further basing that argument, so they shift the basis out of Djibouti to Somaliland, where it isn't quite at least there, they don't rely on it. And finally, on the Mid-Cap argument, they can do that due to new things like hacking and cyber warfare. The chance of Mid-Cap is uniquely high now on piracy, on the unique bit. One week post-date piracy getting stronger, Water 11, 12, hacks, regains, hacks, groups, operating opportunities, expert vulnerability, security forces, threats into room and Red Sea, and fellow 12 states, including non-suits today, and a small piracy rise by expanded dramatically, situation exactly 5 to 300. So even if piracy is down now, we give you a time frame of when the monsoon is ending, so when it will spike. It means to be very unique because it does not matter. Even then, on the link, 1, US power targets. It's not say Somaliland is in fact just that it's a stakeholder reviewing counter piracy. Say that Somaliland is a small part of total piracy operation to the US, Turkey, etc. And our link at 11 every time that Somaliland is trying to fight with a ragtag coast guard. It is 500 miles of coastline, but only 8 vessels. So their contribution does not matter, which also not unique to link because even if the leads turn away from piracy, it does not matter because Somaliland's contribution wasn't that big anyway. But then Somaliland is critical to counter piracy, but needs the absolute time non-recognition, denies assistance, the outcome increasing pirates, and recognize Somaliland for aid in financial institutions and investment. And a couple of the next analytic on the leads in Somaliland obviously get access to international aid, and they would obviously prefer that over small pirates who barely give them anything, and lack of recognition pushes people to terror in the first place. And the country is losing hope for 2014 without recognition. The economic situation is human, 70% youth unemployed. Without opportunity to time bomb Somaliland, you don't see a chance for prosperity by legitimately improving by places like Puntland on trade. No tax impact documents and more 11 global economy. See no credible status. Rebuild trade critical on economy, piracy, party, and inconvenience, and on utilization, cyber evidence, dumb militarization, multinational actors from the West are already in the region conducting anti-piracy, which also means counter-piracy economy being 1 traffic 24. Multilateral counter-piracy works to manage the stand positive direct counter-piracy are not structured to EU and other non-national bodies cut the rest apart. On Djibouti 1, Donnell takes out this argument. It says that trade is down close to the MOU, puts them in the Gulf on because A, their impact should have triggered our P at this moment on board. This argument is not forced, thus saying that any non-EU basically saying that trade is going to go down regardless, non-unique the entire contention. One, investment is high now, Djibouti is unsustainable, and high demand means Djibouti won't be affected. LT 20 Somaliland said it's 30 years contract to expand Rivera, 400 million project. Rivera will give us 50% of trade in the years to come. Tomato gets so big, we're going to need Djibouti. Djibouti's ports are congested due to increasing trade. Ecuador will decline 50%, and countries are diversifying now to reach the thumb. And Djibouti is not for their own are not virtual 22 international clusters. Political stability are challenges. Djibouti experienced economic downturn due to wars. Neighboring nations consider their own ports melon for reasons challenge. Djibouti's monopoly on the last number, and Djibouti is doomed to disease like climate change. MS22. Djibouti faces pressing challenges, climate change, water, energy security, high levels of debt, and cleaner present nature. Djibouti faces considerable economic problems, around 70%. Then, even more. Look for a piece of evidence about peace brokers. Even if the leader is wrong, doesn't mean that suddenly everyone tries to remove them from office. We see this in all the time. And the attitude of unity signals countries work together in the AAC. We in the office to show the president is doing well. And Gunn and Turkey will allow corruption, which is failing now, so he's going to get out of office. By 24, Gunn is finally facing challenges political problems and globally. Anymore.
And then once we get that, I'll
You have 244.
Yeah, to be as good as players.
Alright.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's talk about your argument on bases. What's China's incentive to your war?
The argument isn't the idea that China has presented to go to war. It's the idea that if the U.S. is fundamentally losing the region, and they're going to go to worse measures, things like covert operations that are apparently more escalatory if that happens. By putting troops, or just by putting bases and soft power in places like Somaliland, it means that they don't have to revert to these things, and also it's apparently more stabilizing than the alternative. So
Okay,
yeah.
so it's the U.S. first running.
No, miscalculation.
Okay, so but the U.S. is the one who initiates the miscalculation.
No, miscalculation happens on both sides.
Wait,
The idea
but
that
you just
the-
said that the reason why war happens is because the U.S. gets more aggressive, so which is...
Well, aggression is through covert operations. We're not saying specifically who strikes first in a conflict, but we're saying that covert operations, which are going to happen and have started happening in the status quo, are apparently destabilizing and paving the way for miscalculation, which causes the nuclear conflict. I'll take a question. Okay, let's go to this argument about Djibouti, right? Has Somaliland received investment that is diverting trade away from Djibouti?
No.
Okay, so the $400, $500 million deal that they signed with Dubai for just never happened.
We would say that it's not sufficient. Currently, Somaliland and Djibouti are able to de-escalate their tensions, and our evidence is incredibly recent. It says that the affirmative would cause a dramatic increase in trade. You also didn't read evidence about the UAE port deal in rebuttal, so that just can't be evaluated.
Oh, we do. It's in the just under 20, the 400 million project. But even regardless, right now, in your entire case, can you read me a line that says whether Djibouti's trade is increasing or decreasing?
The argument we're going for isn't directly about trade, instead it's about political perception. We say that when Kool-Aid puts this much political effort into reconciling with Somaliland, based on the fact that they won't be recognized, and then they go ahead and get recognized, that causes a legitimacy crisis that forces them to go to war. So it's not about economic
Let's
incentives.
put this up for two reasons. When you read your case, you read two things. But the issue is that if you're able to non-unique one of the links, it also takes away often from your other link. Let me put this in terms of your actual argument. You say in two ways that A, either the recognition that the president has staked all his campaign on fails, which means he loses power, or due to things like investment in the port, which kills Djibouti's economy, he loses power. We have proved that Djibouti's economy is going down, and this means that he will lose his power regardless. So you can say other reasons like it doesn't matter, but your own evidence says that he is losing power because of the economy.
The problem with that is our evidence doesn't say he's losing power. Our evidence says he's currently strong and that there won't be a power vacuum, which we would say,
even if he's currently strong,
I'd like to finish my answer, which we would say, even if you somehow win some defense of the economy, it doesn't matter. All that proves that the economy is not the key variable. That means that we can still collapse on our other link of politics and go for one link and not the other one all the time.
Even if
That's
it's wrong,
gross.
we did
That's
go
gross.
down to the
That's
long
gross.
term.
Alright, so we have 2 minutes, and we'll continue to that.
We'll take 32. Okay, we'll take 32.
You go to
Where it's going to start is on terror. So Maxi 1, Maxi 2, Ray, and then Is anybody not ready? Start on piracy, you're not going to be voting for it, but our evidence is from it's a Michigan because that over time piracy is still decreases. There's no threat to status quo. However, on the argument that they turn towards terrorism, firstly, there's no terrorism is currently down right now. They don't read anything to the contrary. There hasn't caused any actual attacks. Or evidence says that the most recent attack was in June. Also, the Houthis are completely different. But then, on the argument that it would be way, way worse than the affirmative world, this is completely hypothetical. You always look for our Apollo evidence that tells you that right now the Somaliland government gets their revenue from the people and taxation in the affirmative world. They can just pocket the aid for themselves. Corruption massively increases, so that means that there's more radicalization in the world. Then, go to C2. This is where you go for us. Currently, Somaliland and Djibouti are agreeing and cooperating right now, and Huli is confiding health is completely fine. However, that means that there's complete stability. However, the affirmative world is detrimental because A, it means that there's more trade through the port of Somaliland, which decreases decreases the trade in Djibouti, and then secondly, it completely destabilizes the Gruwe's political legitimacy because he has made himself a power broker, especially in the Somalia and Somaliland deals. However, this causes these states to be destabilized. The United States and China would pick different sides. This leads into a great power war because the region is very important for trade, and these great powers would be close to each other, causing the extinction of a star. They say a couple things. Firstly, the MOU should have paused. However, and group this with the investment is high right now. This is exactly our argument. Djibouti is stable right now because the MOU didn't go through, and there wasn't official recognition, meaning there was no threat to the reports. But then, on the argument that Djibouti won't flash out because they're completely swamped with climate change and everything. Firstly, every state is swamped with climate change, so it's not an actual threat to their regime. All the threats they isolate are not unique to Djibouti. The one thing is the fact that Julie has whole campaign is about being a power broker. That's the dawningly evidence, and always be between Somalia and Somaliland. If they lose Somaliland in the affirmative world and the recognition happens, that means they completely tax him, and then there's more movement within his political faction. Preferred on probability because the MOU didn't actually go through, but then it's also a prerequisite because if Somalia, we would say that Somalia is currently bogged down with counterterrorism, meaning that Djibouti is much more likely to fund proxies in the affirmative world because they want to destabilize the port. But then that means that they response to contention one, and then also we'd say that if Djibouti falls apart, then it increases the likelihood of congestion and miscalculation because there's more destabilization. Also gives the incentive for great powers to go to war with each other because they're different, picking different factions within his regime. Also preferred on time frame because for their argument it's long. It's been a long time with the force. However, it's never actually led to their impact. Whereas the perception that his regime is falling apart causes people to pick sides. And go to their case. Firstly, on Somalia, they can see the fact that the SSC and Somaliland are currently negotiating. That means that in the current world there's no actual power breaking out. However, we would say that when Somalia loses Somaliland, it is a huge legitimacy threat because it would collapse their legitimacy because they're losing a historical part of their territory, meaning that they're much more likely to go to war. They said that they would negotiate with absolutely no reason. It's existential to them. Also, it didn't happen during the FU because it didn't go through. But then, obviously, too, the loans and econ are the same thing. It still proves that a decreasing amount of African nations are going towards China. But even then, we would say that the United States building a base in Djibouti and Somaliland is really bad because it shows to China that they're trying to counter them and proactively go against them, meaning that China is going to build up more weapons and nuclearize more, meaning that it increases their proximity. Then, on the Indian argument, we are going through the argument that India creating more power is really bad because it incentivizes Pakistan to militarize more and cause more nuclearization. Preferred on probability because China has leverage over India and more nuclear weapons, whereas Pakistan doesn't. They would compensate.
Use 30 seconds. I'm going to take running back.
Djibouti is clean.
What's the card name for base English China?
For what?
What's the card name for base English China?
Oh, it's the second card rack.
Plus,
It's hang in a donut.
living in the school. Mickey Rubber.
I just said after Blair's okay, so
Order, Marcus, Wayne, Richard. What is Marcus? How do you consider each argument and go for it? I know.
they usually cover 2
No, formation they say Somalia thinks that after the exit of West, Somalia has been independent for 30 years. There's 0-1 in the last few chapters. Why did they second? They just give up because even though it's exit, because 2/3 of countries are now on Somalia's side, conceding measurement evidence. The first argument we're going for is the China argument. China, Djibouti Somalia is China gains influence. We need to diversify Somalia in order to maintain influence, which requires recognition so we don't violate policies. That's only possible if the AU recognizes so the US doesn't destroy tensions doing so. They concede the military congestion in Djibouti because there's an inevitable miscalculation with China pointing lasers at the US and Trump being more escalated. That causes nuclear war, but the app shifts US forces out of Djibouti to Somalia and preventing conflict, extinction through radiation poisoning, destroying food. They say basing English China. This does not respond to the Olympics. It's not that the US makes a new base to counter China, but rather they move their troops. And they can see there's confrontation now in Djibouti. The app solves doing all things, which also responds to the period. They say, and also this is just not the pandemic. It just says it pushes countries to China, not that it angers them at all. There's no contextualization for why China would escalate. We say this is key for the escalation scenario on length. First chart, I can see extinctions and nevertheless that's global concede uniqueness and impact. So we both have on any risk of solvency. Second time frame, the US and China are the only two countries comfortably do some of those things. No nuclear gas. On the other hand, their scenario takes years because you don't know when great powers are going to be drawn to the Djibouti scenario and escalate. Third, concede China is doing debt traps, which guarantees economic collapse and instability. We use next scenario so now you can destroy or die. Fourth, even if there are internal fights between the US and China and Djibouti, it destabilizes the president because if the US and China are fighting, obviously the president is doing something wrong. And then fifth, the US moving out is turbo demons because there's no instability in the region. If the US moves out, they can't escalate into a conflict. The second argument we're going for is India. India wants to develop relations with Somalia to counter China's influence, but can only do so as a single from the region. It's okay. After assessment, they use singles regional consensus Somalia as a state. India countering China and Africa is power position in the church China by proving they're not just anywhere looking. Otherwise, China wishes nuclear border rest control, power from India for energy. They say they anger Pakistan. Our argument is not about India developing weapons, but rather power protection halfway across the world. They have not explained to you why Pakistan cares at all about what India is doing halfway across the world. We only said that told you why it matters, which is for China. On length, Virgin and Cross have tried and the time frame lady is China and India again both have nuclear weapons. While they have not given us a guideline for when people are drawn in and probability African conflict is far harder to resolve, proven by everything on the floor one. This scenario is conceded and China on their way. They see Somalia is one kind of counter-terrorism, it's more like that issue. This is against the wrong argument. They say there's a likelihood of this comes there's more destabilization. We would say that if they move out, it subsumes this argument because the US is literally not in the region. They say there's been a long time in the region with no impact. It's just not a matter if it's been a long time because we say it's uniquely with Trump. Their case on Djibouti, they have conceded per their own link if the economy and trade falls, the president loses power. Thus, if we can prove that that is happening right now, the president will lose power regardless of their other links. Even if the economy is good now, they have conceded evidence which looks at the long run with the Celesti evidence, which says that Rivera will deal with 50% of trade in years to come. Djibouti ports are congested, cargo will decline 50%. So you know this argument is inevitable. Furthermore, even if it's not the ports that collapse in the economy, they have conceded all factors will, like the climate change, water, energy security, high levels of debt, etc. You also look for this saying not right evidence in the last recent the economy strong. If trade declines, it means their scenarios are not unique, even if they go for the other.
Trump was president for 4 years and they have a military
Yes,
base.
we've given a scenario specifically about right now China's conflict, which means it's about right now the current situation.
So can you just contextualize a little bit about the current situation in China pointing lasers? Because
So right now,
right
China is currently pointing lasers at US bases in Djibouti. They're literally like 10 miles away. And we argue that right now, specifically because Trump has become president, he's like more likely to do things like conflict, or more likely to do things like aggressive. That is what triggers the scenario.
Okay, so it's just based on Trump. That's not good.
I don't know.
Alright, sounds good. So, what does India do to counter China? What does India do?
This power projection, our panel evidence is great on this because specifically the reason why China is willing to aggress on India is because they view India as inward looking. They don't view them as a true competitor. But if India is able to do power projection across the world, they're no longer inward looking. In this scenario, the evidence is quite specific.
Can you just like contextualize what the power projection is? Like how does it
It's showing that it's not necessarily showing dominance over China. It's showing that India cares about trying to build itself in the global field, not just like in their home base. Which means even this argument has nothing to do with basing. It's about the developing relationship with Somaliland, showing that India is doing things outside of its own region, signaling that it's not just inward looking, but rather it's willing to do things like make partnerships elsewhere.
Okay, so like the thing that China sees, like India suddenly this like global power broker, is when they view a relationship with a singular country. Like that's the right line.
What?
Like that's the
I don't
When
think that's
they-
the part on this argument is conceded. You need one DA on every basketball.
it wasn't conceded, it's also waived. But I just want clarity on what this power projection is, because in the last speeches that you've heard, you don't know the context of their argument. You don't know how India gets that.
Okay, this is a new argument in science grand cross. We see the relations are there, and I've explained it during this. Here's the last question.
Sure, let's go back. Actually, let's go to the Djibouti scenario. Can you read me the line from your level evidence that says that like China is defeating Africa?
It's not that China is defeating Africa, but our evidence says, Chinese companies and government lend $1 million to supporters of drugs to many countries in Africa. The reason you reason why China's soft power is increasing is that they're pursuing a more economic agenda. We would say that we fully concede in your summary that countries are no longer interested in turning towards China for economic support. It seems that soft power is decreasing, which means that basing is not necessary and you don't
Wait,
have to act.
we can both agree that this isn't about loans, right? Because our argument is about military exercises. Not
the rest.
We have 32 seconds. Alright, so it's going to be that argument on Djibouti, the Wang debate, and then their case specifically, China, and then is anyone amazing? You signed your ballot on our argument on Djibouti. Remember that right now Somaliland and Djibouti are building relations, which is why there is currently a decrease in fighting, and the Republic president is fine, which means that he is politically safe. Unfortunately, in the world of the affirmative, because he's campaigned on being a peace broker, when Somaliland goes against him, that he is with that, he looks incredibly unstable, causing more conflict. The U.S. and China would get drawn in, causing great power, war, and extinction. All they say is that if the economy goes down, he will end up losing out, but this does not answer our argument. Remember, the fact that currently, politically, he is fine means that even if they somehow win, the economy is decreasing, that somehow, that just does not matter, because they conceded that his political legitimacy is high per all of our evidence. They've also agreed that diplomacy is the most important thing because he campaigned on being a peace broker, meaning that is the most important thing for his legitimacy. None of this nuance was engaged with, and they have fully conceded that the affirmative means that there would be a political legitimacy collapse. Then, on the Wang debate, remember that our arguments outweigh on probability, because during the MOU we saw tensions spike. The only reason it didn't go to all-out war is because the MOU didn't go through. And also, our argument is a fundamental prerequisite to theirs, because we would say that when there's an increased amount of tensions and war in the region, it's impossible to do things like build bases, and it brings the U.S. and China into closer proximity. They just say that the U.S. would leave the region. That's not true. The U.S. would still be in the Horn of Africa, just in a different location, meaning there's still a possibility that they would end up clashing on their time frame. This makes no sense. We have already seen Trump be in office, and their evidence is from years and years and years ago, saying that we should have seen these covert operations trigger something. We would say our scenarios happen much faster because Djibouti perceives they have to go to war. But then, on the China argument, they have fully conceded that currently countries are turning away from Chinese loans, which proves that there is a trend that Chinese soft power is decreasing. Even then, remember, our evidence says that when the affirmative happens, it shows that the U.S. is being aggressive. They say we don't say why. In their last speech, they themselves tell you that Trump is escalatory and hates China, which means that when he takes more action against them, China thinks that that is inherently a bad thing, so they're more likely to go to war. Then, on the India argument, remember, our evidence says that India increasing their soft power is bad because their rival Pakistan does not like that, making them much more likely to go to the nuclear threshold. They've agreed this outweighs their scenario on probability because they have younger nuclear arsenals, meaning they're more likely to go to war.
38 times.
4-1.
like this?
Yeah. Everyone ready?
There is terminal defense to the net. When they introduced this argument, it was two links. One of the links explicitly said that if trade or the economy ever fell down in Djibouti, the president will lose power. You cannot kick your own link, and they have conceded that trade going down is fundamentally not even extended. Shell C20 says that the Revere will deal with 50% of trade to come, and Djibouti points are contested, and Cargill is declining 15%, which means in the long run, trade will decline. It does not matter whether right now the president is in power or not. They can give the long run analysis that says that we give the only trend analysis set in the round and says that Djibouti is on a downward trend. You do not need to go to the wing at that point, so they have zero risk of offense because you know all of their impacts and they're entirely triggered sooner or later. But really quickly, on the Djibouti turn, they say Trump is escalatory, so facing is escalatory. It doesn't matter. They have conceded that we're fundamentally moving troops from a closer area to China away from China because we're moving it to Djibouti into Somaliland, which is farther away. It doesn't matter who is escalatory or not. The app is inherently more de-escalatory, which is all conceded. Also, this turn has no impact, has no implication to any of our arguments. Even if you buy that there's like a war that happens, there's no weighing off it or an actual terminal impact to us. You can't even buy it at the end of the day. Extend India. There is no terminal responses. India wants to develop relations with Somalians to counter Chinese influence. They can only do so if it has a signal from the region that it's okay. After that, the AUC goes, regional consensus Somaliland is a state. India countering China in Africa power projection is that deters China by proving that they're not just inward looking. Otherwise, China wages nuclear war to wrest control of the life from India for energy, exclusive radiation poisoning is going through. Firstly, they say that their Pakistan response is not soft power. But no, when they introduced this argument in rebuttal, it's about the idea that India developing weapons angers Pakistan. But we have explicitly made it clear that our argument is about India developing weapons. But no, it's about the fact that India can power project economically across other places of the world. It is two different things, and they have not explained to you why Pakistan even cares when India is doing this in Africa, not on its border. They say it angers Pakistan, but again, they've full conceded that it's different. At that point, conceded extinction is will probably status quo, or conceded uniqueness. So you vote out on any risk of sovereignty and prefer China over time frame. Affirmative has infinite possible benefit, while inevitable extinction renders the possible negatives insignificant. They say, okay, yeah.